Yep.
Okay, so I've exchanged a couple of emails with you, or I've
Yeah.
so
So that would give you some,
well,
at least
it's
nothing thoughts into my. Yeah. Sorry.
it suggested that you probably have seen a few of the typing sessions.
I watched a lot of them years. I used to watch you a lot years ago, and then I sort of intermittently came in and saw things, and probably this fall I watched a few again to sort of. I basically just I go along with the typing session, see if it fits what I think. I if anything contradicts, and so on. I haven't watched any in it since the clubbing at TP is the last typing session I watched.
Yeah, well, that wasn't even really a typing session.
Yeah, not a typing session, but the last attempt. Yeah, that's what I.
That was a that was that was an example of when things go afoul. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
so all right, I would like to think I'm much better at it than I was a couple of years ago. So
yeah.
hopefully we'll figure you out here. Can you tell me about some small insignificant details from your day the last couple of days?
Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I went to Subway for lunch. I had to go to the. Um, I went to the gas station because I ran out of milk. I that was last night around 7 or 8. Um,
Do you remember what kind of sandwich you got at Subway?
it was turkey. I just generic turkey and wheat bread.
Do you know that because you
Nothing else.
remember getting it, or because that's what you always order?
I don't really have a set thing I get. I just sort of decide when I'm there. But that was only a few hours ago.
Okay. Or do you remember what the person who made your sandwich looks like?
Not at all.
Okay.
Um, it was a woman. That's about as far as it was a woman. I remember that, but anything beyond that, not
In fact, that's how
really.
she greeted you. I am a woman.
But yeah, I guess I can't assume, but as far as
Okay. So when you went to Subway, was it because you suddenly realized, oh, I'm starving, or because you had thought ahead and said to yourself, I'll go to Subway at 1 o'clock, and then you did, or because you've been telling yourself to go to Subway for a while now, and finally you got up your ass and did it.
um, it was more. Well, I didn't eat anything yet today. I don't usually eat anything when I get up. It's just sort of when I'm hungry the first time of the day, and then I didn't have any other past like cereal or something. I don't really have anything else ready, so Subway's the closest thing to my house. So
Do you
that's
find
as far as my.
preparing food a hassle?
I don't enjoy it. It's not. If it's just like put something in the oven, fine. But I don't enjoy like the process of like chop. I hate chopping up vegetables and um. That's. But as far as like just putting like meat on the stove or something, it's neutral.
Okay. Well, can you talk to me about your sleeping habits? What time you go to bed usually? How many hours of sleep you think you need? How regular your bedtimes are if they shift around the clock?
Um, they shift. It's. I mean, it's usually like I'll get up when I have to get up. If I don't have a reason to get up, I'll just. And then as far as and then going to bed, it's more the. I'll usually lean on staying up longer than I probably should. sleeping wise, I probably sleep close to 8 hours a night, but I can function on less pretty fairly easily. I mean, I'm uncomfortable. I mean, I know I'm tired when I'm tired, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
It's not going to affect me that much.
What bodily experience tells you you ideally would get more sleep still?
In my not quite sort of headache, sort of a haze over my just tired. Tired isn't an experience, but it's sort of a haze over my. Trying to think of a better way of describing it than that.
Do you know
Yeah,
what?
just
Do you know what the emotion of sadness feels like as a bodily sensation?
um, if it's like an extreme like event, like medical like a, so I know it like from that, but like my mom had a medical emergency a couple years ago, and I felt physically sick during parts of that. And I know what sadness is. Like I'll no, not really in a bodily sensation. I know what sadness feels. I can feel sad. I'm trying, but not really in like a past. Like I'll feel it in my stomach. Like I said, the extreme situation, but it's like on a day to day, like small thing. Not really.
Do you think emotions get stuck in your body?
No.
Do you think thoughts get stuck in your head?
Yes.
Do you think songs get stuck in your head?
Not they. Not really, but I mean they can, but not as like a habit or not as like a regular thing.
Do scenes from your past replay in your head involuntarily when you're triggered by seeing something that reminds you of it?
No, I can't. I don't know if this has to do. I can't actually, like, I can to an extent, but I can't. My like level of visualization in my head. I mean, I thought about that as like on a scale of like 10, you can like zoom in around and like visualize pictures. I'm probably about a 0.5. I almost entirely auditory.
Okay, so then let me try this. I want you to imagine this scene, okay? There's a couple, they're standing at one end of a swimming pool. And the husband walks down the side of the swimming pool away from his wife towards the bushes, where he leans down, picks up something shiny, and says, look at this. And then walks back along the side of the pool to his wife, and then hands it to her. Now, I want you to tell me, the pool, is it visualize the pool as clearly as you can in your head.
Okay.
Now, did you grab this pool from a pool you've seen in real life, or is it a generic pool, like maybe something you see on TV?
Generic. Kind of worked. My grandparents used to have a pool, but that's not what I visualized. I just sort of took a sort of a random. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have a visualization of numbers in your head, such as 1 through 10 goes up, then 11 through 20 goes down, then 21 through 30 goes up, then... So this is how I visualize it.
No. I mean, it's just all words, I guess, there's almost nothing... Unless you mean, like, you visualize, you see, like, the numbers ticking. Entirely just... I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I can count backwards and such, but it would be effectively like me saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then...
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about the kind of media you consume when you're not learning anything from it? So, just for pure entertainment purposes?
It's a wide range. It's not really learn. I mean, I pretty much keep track of every whatever the political discourse is online. That's not learning. That's more trashy. It can be learning, but I read. I'll read fantasy novels like Sanderson or Stormlight, Abercrombie. Don't know the series. I read that last year. Other things I do, which are
Did you read Wheel of Time?
I did not read Wheel of Time. It's sort of learning. Some things when I do when I'm learning, like I'll come across like a blog. Like this is a blog post that I was learning about last year. It was like wow, I don't know the exact name. It's basically history for atheists, which it's basically a site talking about history. I mean, I'm not religious, but it's a site talking about history, poking out a lot of the holes that a lot of the sort of like pop sciencey atheists. The thing they say a bunch of wrong stuff, pretty much, and it's just going through that, and then from that I went into learning about. From that I went to ancient Rome, which is sort of a generic, when people are going out of history, Rome is probably the most obvious thing, but I read probably 6 or 7 books. I took a lot of notes, probably 100 or so. I remember.
Do you have a purpose for those notes when you take them? Like, is there an eventual use?
I was trying to help myself remember them. I was more working on trying to see if taking the notes would help me remember them more, remember details more.
Okay. Well, let's cut then straight to this concision. This verbatim test. So, I'm gonna say a sentence of medium to long length, and I'm gonna ask you to repeat it back to me word for word. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the sentence. When Grace and Stephen crossed the street, they looked both directions and then proceeded carefully once they saw there were no cars.
When Grace and Stephen crossed the street, they looked both directions and then proceeded carefully when they saw there were no cars. It's not quite right at the end then.
No, I think the end's right. When they saw there were no cars. Right? Or you might have left out a word or something. You might have to change a word or a was. But okay, pretty close though. So can you tell me whether you think of yourself as somebody who knows first, decides, or I guess determines first, knows first, determines first, acts first, or reacts first?
Knows first.
Okay. And do people interact with you, or when you interact with people, is it more likely because they've initiated an interaction with you or because you've initiated an interaction with them?
They initiate, usually. I can think of small counter example, but
okay. When you
I'll ask my friend to
when you initiate, what are you looking to get out of that? Is it something specific, like I need to access you as either a resource of information, you have a truck to help me move, or is it more like I'm feeling lonely?
More the latter. I mean, and it's not really. I don't really think of it in loneliness usually, but it's more.
Or like, you feel like talking to somebody. You feel like socializing.
Yeah, I feel like talking to someone. I don't really ever go to people for information. I look stuff up because it's usually there's rarely someone I know that knows something better than I could just look up. So
True
why
that.
Would I?
Okay, cool. So, are you picky about what you eat?
Not really. There's some things I don't like, but I don't like really creamy sauces or whatever. Consistency, but.
Do you remember any specific meals from your past because they were so delicious? Or so yucky?
Not really yuck. Me and my friend ordered food. I think it was the Super Bowl, and it was just from a restaurant. It was just really bad. It wasn't like I wouldn't say it's like a story to tell, but it was like the chicken was. It was like it was cooked on a grill where they didn't clean off the grill all the way. Or I don't know how to describe it. It was pretty.
And the
All the food
chicken
was
tastes
awesome.
like wood.
It basically did taste like wood, or burnt wood, or something like that.
Okay. Can you recall an instance of a movie that you started anticipating that you might like it, and then you got some distance into it, and it was just like, okay, this is terrible. I can't watch it. I'm turning it off.
I'm trying to. How I mean, it's not determinate, but I usually do. I look up reviews for movies before I rarely just put something on, and of course, like I don't automatically like something because it has good reviews. Like there's plenty of superhero movies that are gonna have a high Rotten Tomato score that I'm not a fan of, but I know what happens, but I can't think of anything.
Okay. All right. Can you tell me what your understanding of truth is?
Truth. I'm trying to think of an answer that doesn't sound sort of generic. It's not like. I mean, I could just say like. I mean, in a sense, people think it's like objective reality or just something that doesn't match. But then in another sense, there's like, I do think aesthetics can be objectively good, and that would be a version of truth to me.
Okay. Can you talk more about? Let's go into the aesthetics more. So,
okay.
a lot of people would try to argue that beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but you're saying you take a contrary position on that. Can you explain why and how that manifests either in your consumption or creative behaviors?
I think, I mean, there is like when you show up, there is like, I don't want to appeal to the, like, general, like, consensus, but if you show someone an attractive person who's conventionally attractive and a conventionally non-attractive person, the majority of people that are going to come to the same conclusion about who's more attractive. And my creative, this is actually an example this is when I was like 16 or 17, how I'd consume music. I found like the Sputnik music. It's like it's not quite Pitchfork, but it's sort of hipster-ish adjacent, and the albums have ratings on them. And I was like, okay, do I only like albums because the people on the site rate it well? So what I basically would rank albums in my head against what I saw how they'd be ranked on the site, and I would pretty much always be right. It sounds stupid, but I did used to do that when I was like a teenager.
Interesting. Okay, so when you listen to music now, how much of your music listening is devoted towards songs you already are familiar with and know you like versus trying out and checking out new stuff?
It's a mix. It used to be a lot of trying out new stuff. I use that one site, so I do find music usually from the same place. Okay, I know these people share a similar taste with me, so why not? That's what but I sort of have favorites, but I like check, and then like I check new music out on the way, and then like, okay, does this? I guess I have a set of favorites, but I periodically check every couple months for what's came out and what's popular within circles that I.
Are you more likely to play a playlist or pick songs specifically one at a time that where you've selected every one of them, or are you more likely to delegate it to mix like YouTube? I click like YouTube will make like YouTube mixes made for you,
Yep.
you know, and I'll
Uh-huh.
usually click one of those. Sometimes I click my own mix
Hmm.
list, but lately I've been doing more clicking the let
Yeah.
YouTube do some of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I use Spotify and they do the thing. I see all my mixes on the screen. I use them sometimes. I'll say I usually go song by song. There's not like I don't have like a planned. It depends. Like I will listen to albums top to bottom sometimes, especially if I'm trying to decide if. I mean, I know if I like the album or not, but it's not quite. I'm not trying to decide if I like it or not. Like, okay, here's an example of something that like there was an album like a concept. If I'm listening to a concept album, and this is so that's just an example of something where I'm not sure right away if I like it because like I know I like a couple of the songs, but do I like it as a whole outside of its concept? Um, so in that case, I'll listen to the album in its entirety. Um, I
Okay,
make playlists on occasion, but it's not a habit.
okay. Can can you talk to me about what you think language is for?
Communication. I'm going to expand on that. Yeah, I'm. I'm. Tr-
Let me give you some
I mean,
choices.
I can say words, but I'm trying to think
Let me,
of words that don't end up just reinstating
or,
communication.
basically,
Um,
I'm asking you to distinguish what what are you trying to, what's the purpose of communication, which is are you explaining things, are
okay.
you
Oh, okay.
accomplishing, are you telling people what to do, are you accomplishing,
Mm.
prompting action in people, are you getting information from people
I'm
when you
getting information. I'm usually getting when I'm talking to someone. I'm usually either getting information or trying to convey. It sounds manipulative, but it's not really. I'm trying to convey to them what I want to convey to them. I'm trying to. I pay attention to what I'm saying. And if I like, it's not like I'm trying to make them like me. It's not like that. It's more. I'm trying to. I'm trying to think of a specific example I could give. I do rehearse like if I'm leaving someone like I communicate on Telegram. I rehearse what I'm going to say in my head beforehand. Sometimes I guess, and like I want to communicate in the right way. And it also depends if I'm trying to explain something to someone. If like okay like this is like if I was trying to explain, we'll use cognitive functions because that's what we're doing. I'm trying to explain them into a way that I don't think it's. I'm trying to. It's very important to me to make it not sound stupid, I guess. And explain it in a way that like you should. This is. I try and break down why I think it's real and not. Um,
where people shouldn't react to it the way they're reacting to it,
yeah,
basically. Okay.
and then sorry.
Go, no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say like I think it's real, and I think by how it's portrayed, people probably should react the way they react. I don't think they're exclusive. I've been like if you
Okay,
the way
that's
that
a
most
good
people. I
point.
mean,
No,
you
no,
have
no,
to
you
really
win the
want to
point.
learn. You have to, yeah, you have to really want to learn about it. I think to get a good, because yeah, it's like most of the time when you see it, you like you just see someone with a random type. It's sort of treated as astrology, even though they're fundamentally sort of opposites in that functions are descriptive and astrology is more. Why am I blanking on the term? Prescriptive. Yeah, astrology is prescriptive and
Well, I mean, it's
typology is more. I mean, there's a mix, but
predictive, I guess. It's like, this is going to be
it's
your future
predictive.
today. Like,
Predictive and it's predictive and prescriptive. More, it's like it's saying you are like this because were born on this date. Whereas typology is fundamentally you have these traits, so you're this type.
yeah, it doesn't really try to explain at any point that's where the lack of explanation kicks in with typology. It doesn't explain why or how you came to be the type you
No.
are. But to me, that's not a particularly interesting question
No.
anyway, because I have an equivalent lack of good explanation as to how or why I came to be male instead of a girl. You know, I don't think a cat.
No, and
My
then
cat wants to go outside.
and then at the same time, like people do outside of Can you still hear? Or are you?
Okay, silly cat. There you go.
Like,
all right, let me just say also that was a very TI-ly, that very TI when you parse the distinction that in fact you're not saying they shouldn't react like the way they are because given the experience they've likely had with typology, they probably should react the way they are reacting, but that's not representative of typology in its optimally rendered form. That's a really TI a narrow TI distinction. So let me do some TI testing right now.
Okay.
Can you tell me if some seagulls live in lakes and all things that live in lakes are trout, is it necessarily the case that some seagulls are trout?
okay. If I lost the beginning of it. Can you say it one more time?
Mm-hmm.
I lost track of things.
If some seagulls live in lakes, and all things that live in lakes, are trout.
Trout.
Is it necessarily the case that some seagulls are trout?
Some seagulls. Yes. Right.
Okay. If only the Japanese enjoy eating whales, and I don't enjoy eating whales, can we conclude that I'm necessarily not Japanese?
If only the Japanese, then and you don't. No.
Okay. If no kidneys are glands, and the pituitary is a gland, can we conclude it must not be a kidney?
Yes, because no kidneys are gland, and the pituitary is a gland. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's try this genealogy question. Can you tell me who my mother's father's wife's husband's only daughter's husband is in relationship to me?
Your dad?
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Interesting. Not shocking. So, okay. Now I'm going to ask you to generate. I'm going to tell you a very short little anecdote, and I want you to generate possible explanations for what was going on there.
Okay.
So, what you and the person who's asking you for an explanation, me, let's say, are doing is we're walking down one side of the street, and we see across the street two people talking to each other in a very gesticulating fashion. Lots of but we can't hear because there's like a jackhammer over here, so we can't hear what they're saying at all. And what we see is them gesticulating a bunch.
Yeah.
Then both of them putting their hands on their hips. Then both of them hugging, and then the man suddenly letting go of the woman and slapping her. And then the woman doing a little Irish jig like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, a truck passed between us and them, and they were disappeared. After that, we couldn't see them anymore. They were gone.
Okay.
So what was going on over there?
Some sort of weird BPD breakup. They were practicing a play. There was a car accident, and there were mixed emotions there. In my head, I'm trying to remember the entire story, but I guess the entire thing doesn't really matter. They they hugged first and then they split.
Yeah, first, no, first they were gesticulating kind of angrily. Then they put their hands on their
Okay.
hips. Then they hugged.
Okay.
Then he pushed her away and slapped her. And then
Okay.
she did the dance.
And she did the dance.
Now, I can tell you this. I'll add you this detail. There was a spiteful expression on her face when she did the dance.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so God, she got angry. They were they they had a idea to it was actually some big trick to gain sympathy. The man and the woman had a plan to trick someone to. I guess the woman was the one who did the slap, but they were trying to trick someone to come over and basically the woman was trying to get someone else to hit on her because the assumption would be that even though she slapped him, that he must have did something wrong. So she was trying to either a scam or
No, he slapped her.
Oh, he slapped her. Yeah. But there could still some people can have a bias. Like even though he slapped her, like oh he must have done something wrong. Maybe they. He slapped her. I keep getting mixed up on the I guess SI. He slapped her. I usually. God, I crossed the different parts of the story in my head.
Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. Okay, that's plenty of information from that down there. Now, have you ever heard me tell the potato touch story? And can you come up with an equivalent? Okay, the potato touch story is this. I went to a restaurant. I usually got breakfast. I sat at the counter. Now, the thing is, you don't really need to get the details of this. You just need to get the gist of it, okay? So, if you miss details here, it doesn't matter. But as long as you get the point of the story, which is, I saw the waiters, when people ordered a meal, which had a potato, when they got the food plate down from the chefs, they'd push on both ends of the potato with their fingers to make it open up and then scoop butter in. And I said to myself, if I ever order a meal, I'm going to keep an eagle eye out, see how much they touch my potato. One time thereafter, I went in, I did order a meal. I did keep an eagle eye out the whole time waiting for my food. But then, all of a sudden, my plate arrived and I realized I'd gotten rice pilaf, not baked potato. So, there was nothing to keep an eye out for. Now, that's an example of me following through on my SI plan to keep an eye out if I ordered a meal, and failing and ignoring my NI intuition, which should have kicked in and said, red light, plan no longer applicable because you got rice pilaf, right?
Yeah.
Can you come up with a comparable example from your own life?
Yeah. Where I have an SI plan.
An SI plan,
to.
and because you're following through on your plan, even though there's something that's right in front of your eyes that you should have realized invalidated your plan, you ignored it.
I don't really plan. I'm trying to. I mean, I know it doesn't have to be literal. I mean, it can be any service. I'm not like just thinking of food. It's just. An actual. I can think of comparables that other people did, like the same like restaurant type thing. Like one of my friends, like pretty much the same thing, and like ordering food at a restaurant and compare it. But
okay, well, let me ask you the other direction then. Can you think of a time when you should have used your intuition but should have trusted your experience? So, an example for me would be there are times when I hit a clog in traffic. And I've already learned from previous experiences that trying to go around this either of these other ways is even worse every time. So just sit here in this traffic. But there'll be times when my intuition will go, it looks so empty of cars over that way. So I'm gonna go try this. I'm gonna try to get around this clog of traffic. And then once again, I hit the problem that I remembered the gist of, but not the details of from before. And I go, oh, that's right. The problem's over here in this part of the thing. So now it was a dumb decision. I should have gone with my experience, not my intuition in the moment.
I should have gone with my experience. Okay. I could just comment on my SI in general because a lot of it is. I mean, I know you're trying to get at more than SI, but my SI, it's the way I think of it. It's strange because I know I'm not SI polar, but it's very juxtaposed. Whereas there's certain types of SI where I'm very good, and there's certain types of SI where I'm very bad. I feel almost polar. Like it's. I mean, I can describe it. Like if I'm coming across something, or like I'm watching you, or if I see an inconsistency or something like that, I'll immediately just be like, sort of, if something just comes, like, I just thought of, even like with you, like I'll watch you. This is actually from years ago. I just came up. I'm not saying this isn't like I got you, but like it's not. I'm not making a point with it. I guess is what I'm saying. But like you at one point, you made a reference like about how Nardi's the brain scans, and it was some positive argument. But then I immediately thought back. I know your type releases aren't determined, but you went when you did type release them, you were confident he wasn't the type he thought he was. You were using him as like a positive argument when you were confident he wasn't the type he thought he was. So it just didn't seem to make sense why. I mean, I knew it was like, there were giant things apart, but I guess it's an example like
oh look, if I were smart about type police, I wouldn't be doing a good job of imitating the police.
I know, but that type of thing, where like, or if like this is something I do at school, like when I was in college, my undergrad, I had like someone that I was like hung out with at school. They tell me like, okay, I have an appointment 3 weeks from now at 3 p.m. And then I don't think of it. It's not in my head at all. But then 3 weeks comes by and I'm like, oh, you have an appointment at 3. I remember that type of stuff. But if you ask me to remember something, like this was just a couple nights ago, my brother's friend was over and he's like, what did you do for college? And I basically can't name a single class. I mean, I can't, if I like sit there and like think about it, I can, but if you just ask me, and it's not just an anxiety thing.
No, it's clear what it is. To me, it seems pretty clear what's going on here with your SI. You're hitting on all the boxes where I expect you to. Let me test out a couple other things, and I'll have this thing locked in place because it's consistent with what I would expect. Okay, so can you tell me how to solve plastic in the ocean?
Well, nuke China and India. I don't know. Yeah, that's sort of a joke, but it has some multilateral. It'd have to tank the economy. Do you want me to list potential reasons in anything, or was that just?
This is a TE thing. I want you to actually solve the problem.
Oh,
Well, that's funny. That's telling that you. That's also very telling. It's the one thing about which you guys are wrong. I got an email from somebody this morning who gave me this very complicated way of checking for TE that she thought might work. TE polar in particular, and I said, well,
yeah,
it's pretty revelatory to just ask somebody to solve California's drought crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. Or, okay, so what if I were to ask you instead of solving plastic than the ocean, I would just say, attain some solvency, make a positive, take action to move towards the solution.
I mean, you can do small actions like the plastic straw bans, but they don't really do anything. You can. I mean, I can just name a bunch of like platitudes that don't mean any.
Okay.
Like spread awareness and stuff like that, but that's not.
The answer is go scoop out some plastic with a bucket from the ocean.
Well, yeah.
Okay. When something breaks around the house, like broken jiggly doorknob or toilet that's running, or like a drippy faucet, do you fix it yourself? Do you ask somebody else, or you just ignore it until it gets unignorable?
I'll look up how to do it, and if it's extremely easy, I'll try and if I can go step by step. I mean, I can look up how to do something, and then I can copy it if it's. But I'm never going to just. And even then, honestly, I'll probably ask someone to do it. I can think of examples of my. Like I spun my car out. This was years ago. It was just like it was like a 2-inch, not even a ditch, like over the side of the road in the snow, and I like look at it for a second, and then I immediately call my mom to and drive. Like I knew it was like an easy thing that anyone could do, but I didn't even attempt to.
Better to err on the side of acknowledging you don't understand how to do something, and then not being the one who's responsible when you fuck it up, than to err on the side of I'll handle this myself, but knowing that you might fuck it up, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I know the type you think, but I can list other examples of my TE being like the most difficult thing I ever had to do in college. For me, it was chemistry lab 1, where my lab partner dropped out or something like that, and I had to set up all the equipment by myself, basically, and it was extremely embarrassing because it's basically the equivalent of like sticking 2 things together. They were very simple things, and it's people who I should be. I'm not saying in most contexts I feel smarter than them, but in that it's like there's something. Because that's when I realized there was something missing there, where like I can't do these very simple things, and yeah.
Okay, so you know what type I think you are. What type do I think you are? Right. I mean,
INFJ.
It seems pretty obvious to me. That's where you're hitting with your SIs, right in the 8th slot. The fact that you have most difficulty making conscious distinctions between the epistemologies, or at least recalling specific examples of having attended via the 8th slot function.
Yeah.
If you define unconscious as difficulty in recalling specific examples of having attended in this way, then 8th slot's the most unconscious, and that's what you're showing about SI.
It's extremely frustrating, too. It's the most frustrating. Like the TE stuff I don't care about because I can just ask someone to do it. It doesn't really impact my life in any. It doesn't impact me being able to do what I want to do in any way, I guess is the bet. But the SI stuff, like I gave the history. Like part of the reason I was taking, because I want to be able to consume something and then communicate it to other people at the level that I think I have an understanding of it. But it's like I consume it and I understand it, and it's not that I don't understand it afterwards, but like I can't.
It doesn't unpack cleanly.
It doesn't at all. It makes it sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, or I feel like I can't communicate, or like hypothetically, okay, there's a group of people, they want to talk about whatever. Well, it's this generic politics issue. And like, say I read about it, I actually read about it, and I spend all this time looking into it, and then I come to my conclusion, and then it's time to like talk about it. And like maybe if I like sit there and stumble over my thoughts for 30 minutes trying to like bring everything up, I'll be able to get to it. But like I can't articulate myself, and it doesn't really feel like I learn, I guess is a better way of saying it. Like I learn in like a general sense, but I don't like, I spend a lot of time, like all I do is consume stuff. Not all, but that's the main thing I do. Like I consume media or whatever, or books or anything. And then I'll read about a fantasy series, and then a month after I read about it, it's like, what did you think about the book? And I can't. Yeah, it's extremely frustrating.
Right. Well, I mean,
Biggest insecurity, I think.
I've called ACE flop before the insecurity function, and you can see it in Rachel in a video we published today, because basically she felt like her SI was being pushed on. She noted it in one direction, I noted it in the other. She said, like, it's being pushed on because my day-to-day random shit that happens, like the fact that sometimes people see me bring you food when you're live streaming and think, should not be taken to mean that I'm Eric's servant, or somehow that we have this kind of like weird power dynamic that doesn't exist at all between us. So she was offended, basically, that her day-to-day minor SI kind of actions, her habits, could be used against her, like that.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, it was pushing on her SI because he was basically saying, okay, now I'm going to portray you as this person, and I'm going to portray your relationship as this kind of relationship. But the thing that she did is she's kind of gaslightable, because she approached the question of like why it bothered her so much first by saying, well, it makes me wonder if we do have that kind of relationship. Now that is a really unconscious SI, because our actual day-to-day behaviors with each other are the only thing that meaningfully provide data or relevant data on that question. And yet, even though she has full access to all of our interactions, she doesn't first think to remember them and check her actualities against this NI thing. Rather, she checks NIQs about our relationship, how they might be perceived, and against some other weird NI thing, and goes, am I in that relationship?
Yeah, and I guess I'm also more conscious of when people have type biases or like function bias, because I hear people like, I think INTPs talking about their it was basically a rationalist type blog, and it's the whole like, you don't know how to do something unless you can explain it back clearly. And like, usually how I think about it in my head is like, or you don't actually know something if you can't explain it back, something along those lines. And like, I know how to do it, or know how to, when I go over it, but then like a month later, I still knew how to do it when I came to the conclusion, and the conclusion's still the same. Even though I can't like,
you can't reproduce the work that you did to come to that conclusion. Okay.
Yes.
Well, the thing is, part of that work is NI, and part of that work is TI. You did well on the TI test, and you answered a difficult genealogy question. Most people wouldn't have been able to get it on the first try. And it was also pretty clear to me that you were as much NI as you were TI. The thing about NI is holistic, right? So when it's maximally effective, it's understanding whatever kind of dynamic system the interface function that goes with it is, and it's whatever was I just saying?
The interface.
It's TI and NI, right?
TI NI relationship.
So When NI is most effective, it's talking about relevance or salience, and that means it's factored in
Yeah.
the dynamics of the system. They can't really be reduced. In other words, NI is about stuff for which there's synergy. Like you talked about how when I asked you about truth, you ended up concretizing it via aesthetics, namely whether something's good or bad art is objectively true, rather than concretizing it via philosophy. The reason is because your arguments work a lot better with holistic truths, like the fact that you are right. Like creative aesthetics are a matter of objective consideration, but we can't prove that with argumentation because in order to prove something with argumentation, that truth that we're expressing has to be reducible. INFJs are specializing in irreducible truths, and so even when you have done the work to reduce the truth, you're still going to only retain the takeaway or the gist of it that you would for an irreducible truth. It's the same. In other words, you have the same epistemological strategy towards all the truths, which is to treat them as irreducible. Even if they are reducible, you're not going to remember the details of reducing it or think it's necessary because, after all, what you're saying is true. So the thing is, with rationalists, like people who don't know about cognitive functions, like TI people, will choose to say, will fall into this wholly negationary frame of reference that says, okay, nothing can be learned from irreducible truths. But that's simply not the case. We just have to be a little smarter about recognizing that objectivity and reducibility are not the same thing, and that argumentational supportability and correctness are not the same thing.
Yeah, and I mentioned like my inability to visualize things. I've heard people say that visualization's linked to NI, but I always thought it was more TE. And maybe it's not even completely related to type, but I have thought like, okay, I have particular issues with memory stuff because my lack of being able to visualize things, but I don't know if maybe it's just my type and that's not fully related. I don't know.
I think the communicative types, of which INFJ and ENTP are the two most communicative, are the least likely to be heavily visual. Maybe you could toss an INTP, ENFJ as well, but the reason is because communication is first and foremost a auditory process. It exists as sound waves through air before it exists as writing or anything else, right?
Yeah. I was reading sorry.
In other words, you can communicate without even using words, just by making sounds through the air. And so, as a consequence, the types that are most aligned attentionally to talking or communication rather than experience are going to, seems like logically, be less visual and more absorbed.
Yeah. And I was reading like some book on cognitive. It was Thinking Fast and Slow. I read that a year. And like it's about cognitive biases basically. And when I read how he describes sort of how like pictures pop in a person's head, like the process that he described didn't match, and a lot of the way they don't match how I think I interpret things, which again I think was just him being an INTP and assuming people. I don't know.
The biggest tragedy of all the universe is that the meta-analysts, INFJs, INTPs, ENTPs, ENFJs, who are doing the work of tending to narratives, who ought to be the most narratively deft and responsible for the public communication, the public discourse, they are operating under a wrong frame of reference because they don't have cognitive functions to guide them. INTPs, especially INFJs and ENTPs, these three types more than any other, need to understand a correct map of human personality in order to express anything other than their cognitive function biases, because we're mapped first, and we've been throughout history. We've been operating under false maps of fundamental questions of what humanity is and what an individual is an expression of, right? In other words,
Yeah.
if we do view humanity as not a bunch of individuals, each of whom is an expression of one of 16 possible configurations, we've got the wrong map. And because we've got the wrong map, depending on how it's wrong, right, what wrong alternative we've got instead is gonna poison our chances to get beyond our own cognitive function biases. If you're super metaphysical, because that's how we grow, is by map first.
It's like most of, like, I always did all the cognitive function stuff. I didn't like have a name for it, but I categorized people back to when I was probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old. Like my grandmother and my aunt, they're both, I mean, assuming like I'm typing them properly, my grandmother is an ISFJ and my aunt's an ESFJ. And I group them in box. I always group people in boxes, I guess. And
you're probably right too, just based on the fact that your interaction with me about this process and the way that it seemed clear that you knew where I was going with things. You obviously know cognitive functions pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I knew the type I was coming in. I still wanted to see if you'd come to the same conclusion just for some sort of confirmation, because usually the only times I've ever talked cognitive functions with people, the few people I did who are sort of they usually just, I don't want to say they just go with what they actually believe what I'm saying. I always know more than they do. So and the thing about cognitive, they don't really take much SI. No. I mean, there's some, but there's very little compared to other. So I can explain it better than pretty much anything else I learn about.
Right, because it's a map built out of relationships rather than another via relational qualities. Like, because this is here, this thing acts like this. It's a description of two-ended things, and so it's conceptually a holistic mechanics. Is exactly the sort that NI likes to grok, Yeah,
and each person if you're typing someone, each person's a new on a canvas. Canvas is the wrong word, but it's you start from like a blank, not a blank, but you start from a person, and you don't have. It's not like you're carrying over the next person to the next person. You're always starting from whoever you're looking at. It's just it just made everything make sense when I learned about it. The other thing about, like, I was pretty confident I was on INFJ within, I don't know, a couple days of reading about, like, because when I hear about most of, like, INFJs, it's like they always second guess their type, or
they don't really.
They have a lot of trouble. No, they don't. Okay, because I never say my type. I like.
That's what they do.
I think.
I never say my defense. They FE defense it. It's not that they're second guessing. It's that they don't want to make the definitive claim that they are an INFJ, because then somebody's going to ask them to justify it.
Oh, and this is actually another. I don't know if it's all FE. Some of it's NI too. I think, because there's also like, if you know what an INFJ is, you'll know I'm an INFJ, and if you don't know, it doesn't really mean anything to you. So what's the point in like just saying it?
Right.
Because sometimes I do type people. Like, this was, I mean, it was on a dating site. This was only last week or something, but like, some person said they were interested in cognitive functions basically on their profile. It was a long, so there's enough text. It's not like a little blurb. And I basically gave them out a big long reasoning into why I thought they were the type I thought they were, and I thought they were an NFP, because I said INFP or ENFP. It was one of them. They were obviously intuitive. I know you say you can't type on, not you, but on intuitive or sensor, but you can tell in writing style. A lot of the time.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
But I tell you, ISFJs will fool the fuck out of you, though.
Yeah, but there was like, and built into my critique of her, not critique, but like, I thought she was an NFP that might think she's an INFJ, so I write like a possible like out at the end, not an out, but like a. I think the only thing that might make me think you're an INFJ is that you don't have your type written, because she didn't have her type, and my normal, and I, at least in my head, NFPs are more likely just to have their type. And then I talked to her, and she said she wasn't an NFP. And she sent me like a link to like a meme channel. She like a meme Instagram basically. So I looked at it, and I immediately realized, because she said and I don't believe people usually when they say their type, but I immediately knew she was an INTJ. Not is basically, and the reason I thought she might be an INFJ, at least in my head, like that she didn't have her type listed. That's just one thing. There was a lot more data points. The possible thing that I said, like, okay, maybe they actually linked to INTJ too, because I actually think it's an I thing, because I asked her why she didn't have her type listed, and she basically gave the same answer I did. And I talked to her, and she was very much an INTJ. I think this is an example of FE polar, because like I asked her what type I was, and she thought I was originally. She said I was an FE intuitive. And then she guessed from my profile and what we talked about. She thought I was an ISTP at first, which I mean we didn't talk. It was just through text. It's not. I think I can come off NTP-ish in certain context, but she basically said like, "Oh, your profile sounds more extroverted for an INFJ or something like that, more than something along those lines." And I basically explained to her that I was trying to portray myself in a specific way, and the last person I dated was through the same website, and I don't it's not lying, but I specifically tailored my profile to what I thought they'd like, the parts of me that I thought they'd like. And when I read their profile, it said she seemed like honestly, it read like an ENFP that thought they were an ENTP, but she sounded like she wanted to date an ENTP, so I accentuated the parts of myself that I thought she'd like, and
then you were stuck with, oh shit, now I've got somebody else who I would rather have customized this in the following way, believe in my previous customization.
Yeah.
And you can't really explain all that to them, can you?
I know, but I explained it, like I was trying to explain FE too. We were talking about cognitive, and she basically didn't take into account that people try and portray an image of themselves. I guess is more what I was getting at, which might be an example of FE polar.
Yeah, it's crazy when you encounter someone's polar hit you in the face like that, and you realize, oh shit, you really are not aware at all of all of this FE kind of subtext going on.
And she was very much an INTJ too. Like, her interests weren't like stereotypical INTJ, but when I interacted with her, part of just like there was, I mean, no chance she's an NFP, and I knew she was a FI.
I'm sure you're right. Generally,
yeah.
You know, what I've experienced with Rachel is she doesn't make a lot of claims.
No.
And that's part of why, when she does, she's so likely to be right. And like you described with her SI, she'll go across a couple of weeks without thinking about a thing at all. We've talked about this before, but then remember just in time to remind me. Now, for most things, I remember, and she doesn't do that. It seems like she'll only remember it if I happen to not remember it too. And it's like there's some sort of NI weirdness going on there that I can't quite explain, but it's it's I'm learning to trust it. I'm learning to trust it more. When Rachel says something, I go, okay, wait, Eric, don't do your normal, your reflexive. But it could also, I'm sure it could be this or that or that or everything.
Yeah. I'm always making sure in my head that I'm not saying something wrong. It is sort of like a built-in defense mechanism. If it's more an NI thing than a TI thing, do ISTPs, are they as careful or?
No.
No,
not even close. It's an FE and I thing. The problem with being universalist in your knowing about how behaviors impact others is that it primarily serves to constrain you. These are things that you can't say if you want to minimize risk in terms of perception management. And so INFJs end up succeeding by omission more than anything else, right? Like, they don't say the wrong thing. That's their number one priority, and it works. It serves them extremely well. They sometimes say they also use affirmation well, but only as they see fit and when they want to. Number one thing they're doing is preventing themselves from being subject to legitimate critique after the fact. And secondarily, if there's some genuine appreciation and or instrumental appreciation for some third party, then the INFJ will highlight that third party's positive qualities to them.
Yeah. And if I'm not sure, I'll build in a bunch of either qualifiers or alternate, like I'll make sure they know that I'm thinking of the alternative, that I'm aware of the alternative, or something like. Did you think I was an INFJ before the type from the emails, or did you think a different?
I didn't even think about it at all. See, that's the thing.
Oh no.
I really don't think about. I'm an SI person. I'm a particularist.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's emailing me, I'm not even thinking about their email except in terms of whether it is something I have to respond to, something I should respond to, or just something that's bugging me. And that's really all I think about it, and then I move along to other things. And then it's like, when I start typing you, that's when I start attending to your attentional things. Even in the live streams and stuff, when people are chatting in there, if somebody says, like, I'm a meow, 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 and then proceeds to say a bunch of shit that is totally inconsistent with what I expect from that type, then I'll start to be like, the fact that you're saying over and over again, I'm a meow, 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 and then also manifesting something contrary to that, and apparently double suggests to me that you're probably not a meow, 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 meow. But
no, anytime I see like INFJ in a username or something like that, I automatically think no.
INFJ Mystic. INFJ Mystic 724.
It's about the least likely thing. I really, like, I watch your live stream, but I don't really, I mean, I don't comment. I don't think I've ever, a lot of it is, like, I don't like not being able to clarify anything that, I like everything being communicated in the way I want it to be communicated, and if I can't clarify it, if there's, like, I don't know if it's quite control, but it's, like, I like being able to, in real time, clarify any possible misconception.
I mean, it is true that because the timings are lost when you're communicating, where one person's talking and the other person's chatting, the timings are lost. Like, I say meow, somebody responds to it. By the time the response gets all typed out and sent, I've suddenly shifted lanes and I'm over here. I've already like forgotten what we were talking about when they put that thing, and then they don't get any satisfaction of feeling as though they've been heard when it needed to be heard. And that can be frustrating for any chatter, including me, because I'm sometimes in CJ. I've started hanging out in CJ streams when he streams sometimes, and I get mad at him. He doesn't read my shit out loud, you know. And one time I was like, God damn it! I started my own stream and said, I'll pay attention to the chatters. Come over here. This is boring when he's not reading my shit out loud.
Yeah. And you're the only MBTI. I mean, you're the only, I guess, cognitive that I watch at this point. When I first got into it, I pretty much just consumed like a wide range of people and just sort of took the parts that I thought made sense and the parts that I didn't, and I moved on until I found you.
You know, it's funny. I'll share something. An INFJ who will go unnamed by request shared with me a private playlist of videos about typology that she had collected of good videos, and the beginning of it was a bunch of random people, and then the end of it was all me.
Yeah. Like, it's not like hate watch, but like, a lot of the rest of it does, a lot of the typology community as a whole, it does frustrate me, especially like the C.S. Joseph and DSP types. Yeah, like it's
They're the puppy mills of typology.
yeah, like this is the type of like if I were like to describe C.S. Joseph to someone, try, like I don't care about IQ tests, but like he made like it was like a 30-minute rant about how his score on an IQ test and how it was like 107 or 108 and how his IQ must be way higher than that and blah blah blah, and IQ had the TE bias and that's why he scored low on an IQ on his test. It was like a giant. He was extremely upset about the reason, and basically IQ tests are bullshit and have a TE bias. But then like less than a month later, he's making a video talking about IQ tests and that NTPs have the highest IQs with the whole implication. I don't know if the video was about it, but that was what he was talking about, with the entire implication that he had a high IQ because he's an ENTP. It's just a level of dissonance that...
Boy, that's some, I don't know what to call that. Is it like, what kind of, it just willfully ignoring any actual data. The funny thing is, one time online, somebody sent me to an intelligence test that was, it comprised all visual pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And I scored a 107 on it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I was delighted by that score because I was then able to, every time anybody brought up IQ, to say, well, I mean, I've got an IQ score of 107. It doesn't stop me from being right. So it obviously can't be particularly relevant to anything.
Yeah.
So it's totally like opposite response to it, right? He cares about the label, not getting that it's only it's just he's label first, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And like I don't know, like it's a level of dissonance that I don't. Yeah, he's an ENTP. And none of his function descriptions they contradict themselves. TE is in his basically rationale. But to him, that also connects to the ability to evaluate sources. But how is that different than logic? Because you're, all this, the whole thing, it's just.
It's a TI mess. Like a list of it's a TINI clusterfuck of a disaster is what it is.
Yeah, it's horrible. Everything about it's horrible. It's a.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, what happens with typology that doesn't seem, it seems kind of unique to typology, is that you got this weird confluence of it's a real thing, but like literally everything that's in this class of thing except typology is complete bullshit.
Yeah, no.
So
that's the thing I'm having.
And it's like, okay, well, I get it, but
and it's the only thing I've ever been interested in that it's not quite that I'm embarrassed to like say I'm interested in it, but I'm not going to mention. It kind of is. Like, I'm not going to say it to someone without being able to, like, give, like, a full explanation of why I don't think it's bullshit. But it's frustrating because it sort of... It attracts... It's... Because of where it's positioned in that the people that... It attracts people who are into it sort of for the label of a type. Everyone... like quote unquote smart people, whatever you want to call it, pretty much treat it as a joke. But every like data point you have, if you don't go into it, would make you think it's bullshit. And so like people who I'm doing smart in quote, like the people who I tend to think would be more critical are going to be avoidant of it.
Good mappers and bad mappers.
It scares away the people that are. I think it scares away the people that are best at it before they even get into it, which is a problem unique with it. Because there's people with like the same issues everywhere, like being like super attached to the type, like the way that a lot of people want to. It seems like when you watch other people, it's pretty much like types are just like an ENTP is an ENTP, and there's nothing past that. It's like an ENTP is someone that basically says they're an ENTP. There's not like, okay, what does that connect to, or anything like that. It's like, and I mean, you see it like in politics, too. I pay attention to everything. Like within the trans community, this isn't like a statement of it, but there's infighting in those groups, and it's like on one end there's people who say a woman is a person that a woman is a woman is basically one side, and the other side is like you need some definition of woman to go by, no matter how broad you make it, or it doesn't really mean anything. And it's not a one-to-one, but it's the same. And then whenever you criticize the woman equals woman or ENTP equals ENTP, that they get very upset at their critiquing that. It's not. I mean, I'm not saying it's the exact same, but it's a similar mindset.
I mean, the thing is, generally it is the case that certain aspects of one's own identity can be arbitrarily determined by one's own self and are one's property in the same way that one's body is. However, words are for everybody, and part of respecting that is respecting that if you're going to tell somebody to please wash your car, that you shouldn't say bananas sing hymns in the church, because then you'll get some different thing than what you want, right?
Yeah. And of course, everything is unpleasant about telling someone they aren't the type that they think they are too. You don't want to tell someone,
I mean,
okay, you're not me. It's not.
I usually don't want to, and it depends on, like, a lot of times if somebody comes in, like you were saying, you were intuiting about this lady that she was a meow who thought she was a meow.
Yeah.
I sometimes have those intuitions as well. Sometimes they're on point, and sometimes it turns out I'm totally wrong because I'm ignoring. And they go, no, actually, I thought I was exactly what you said I was, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I was misreading those signs. In those instances, I assume it's the thing I'm interpreting as meow is just they're so comfortable with being their type that they're fine with self-reporting badly and figure I'll push through it.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, in typology, there's basically just you. It's like there's like these sort of I consider them like there's like the self-help, kind of like self-help, or they talk about the type, but like sort of like not super critical, like Eric Thor, or I'm trying to think of other examples like that, or even a Frank James, or like sort of meme videos. There's like that end. There's you in the middle, and then there's like the DSP and the CS Joseph type.
I feel kind of bad for not being very hospitable to Thor when he came around the stream the other day. I kind of scolded him for interviewing Melissa Talks without calling her out on her bullshit. But, you know, it's like, I get it that it's not fun to create discord when somebody else is trying to be peaceable and pleasant and have a mutually harmonious interaction. But the problem is, if they're trying to have a mutually harmonious interaction with you, based on the fact that you have this commonality regarding type, which is, say, even if it's just an interest in that, if you can clearly see and know enough to determine that, I'm pretty sure I'm right here, this person is not the type they claim to be, how can one proceed forward in the conversation with this huge elephant in the room, except without validating the notion that it's completely arbitrary?
No, it's like at one time they all seem to like say that they think cognitive functions are real, and the majority of people tend to think like extroverted intuition. Most people think that it basically means ideational ability, like at the broadest sense. Like most people agree at like that point, but then when it actually time to like look at ideational ability, they like completely shut it off, and it doesn't matter. It's like they talk about it until it's time to apply it.
Right. Yeah, because it's the easiest way to process the information, I suppose, is to hear positive adjectives and believe they're directed at you. And so it's like one of my most popular videos of all time, and I believe a fair number of the people who watch it actually are INTPs. It was basically a 5-minute video all about me generalizing from my being happy with this one debater I had who was an INTP, me talking all about how brilliant INTPs are,
Mm-hmm.
and just gushing about how wonderful they are, because as an SI person, I start with my experience. I was really talking about this kid that I was happy with how they were killing it in their scrimmages,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that to communicate things universally and have them resonate more FAU wise, I need to generalize shit out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go, well, this person's a good debater in large part because they're an INTP, and I might as well generalize that to INTPs. So instead of saying like Grace or whatever her name was, I say INTPs, and then I spend 5 minutes just gushing about them, and
Mm-hmm.
and everybody just loves the video, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what a wonderful video!
Yep. Yeah, like I do think about like ways of like getting more people interested in the. I'm not trying to like kick more people into MBTI who I think would benefit from it. Is a positive way of saying it, because and like yeah, the issue. Yeah, it's like really like when you're interacting with like the other communities. Usually it's like none of their fans are going to. You're not going to appeal to the majority of their fans because the reason you are almost in contrary with the reason they're fans of some of the people there. Not always, but a lot of them. So it's hard to gain a following that way. Like the obvious thing seems like okay because no one really. I don't know. Basically, instead of like okay, I'm gonna like because everyone's the cognitive function community is very insulated. Instead of like staying insulated, it would be someone going like okay. And they don't have to like start from a cognitive function like I'm gonna like go into these either politics communities or issues where there's also like people thinking about things wrong, but they're larger communities, so there's obviously gonna be more smart people too. So instead of like okay, I need to grow from within the cognitive function community or MBTI community, I need to like take from other communities somehow.
Well, I mean, the thing is, because my channel was never,
Yeah, no, I know that's
was
not
never
what you're.
intended
Yeah,
originally to be MBTI. It actually have a lot of videos that are not even about typology
yeah,
that potentially could get people interested in looking into it.
yeah,
But the fact is, if you are curve surfing, which
yep.
to ignore the FE considerations and just be
Mhm.
like that's what's happening here. It
Yep.
definitionally means there aren't that many people
No.
who are able to. You're too early of an adopter, kind of.
Yeah,
And I think
like
that's what's happened. That's what's happening to me, basically, is that I'm too early of an adopter, and I've always been. And so I've always
yeah.
been like off in the shadows.
Like I know like this is a couple I don't know how long ago it was, but like someone like there was like the modern day debate thing where someone emailed about that, and like that never made sense to me, in the sense that like it's not a huge channel. It's like it's a debate channel where he went to that guy to try and help you find a debate, and the guy does weekly debates. When like why don't you just go to like there's streamers he has on that will basically talk to anyone or debate anyone who are 6 times the size or more. And like, why are you going to like the weekly debate show instead of just going to the person who gets more views and would talk to you? It seems really silly to like go through the modern day.
I mean, the thing is, I guess,
That was, I know that. I know.
I guess probably that guy was familiar with
I'm
that
not
channel.
like I'm not insulting him.
He probably
Yeah.
he probably wanted
Oh.
to see me
Oh.
and that guy, you know.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I never even looked at the guy's channel.
Yeah.
The thing with debating, anyway, is
It's yeah.
it's
Or it
just
could just be a dialect. Yeah.
it's frustrating for me because people use that term so willy nilly.
I know. It basically means argument or screaming match a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that's not what.
And the typology analogy I was thinking of is it's like those of us who understand more or less how one should think about cognitive functions, which is as this basically two function configuration that defines how your attention is limited when you compare it against a dominant example of the other functions. So when people understand it correctly, then it's like we're at a store at the airport in a state, and then a bunch of people get off the plane, and we've got maps of the state here, and but we've also got maps of other states, and it's like some people get off the plane and go, okay, well, we're here in Tennessee, so we're gonna get a Tennessee map of Tennessee, but lots of people get off the plane and go, ooh, you know what? I kind of want to visit the Alamo. Let's get a map of Texas. That way we'll be in Texas. And those of us who are making and selling the maps go, yes, we have maps of Texas, but that's not applicable to you. We have these stores in all the states. That's why we have all the state maps in them. You should get the one that's applicable to you in this state if you want to use it now. And these other maps are for people who are traveling to Texas, not for people arriving into Tennessee to use in Tennessee about Tennessee, right? If you get the Texas map and you try to apply it and drive around, you will find that none of the roads match. And you'll be like, but I could have sworn it said when I leave the airport, the Alamo would be over there. And you'll be like, I don't even see route whatever anywhere. So you're going to be very confused if you're trying to follow the map. Now, if instead what you do is this, you buy the map, you put it in the glove compartment, and you drive around Tennessee and go to the Grand Ole Opry and go, wow, isn't the Alamo fantastic? And then you come back to the airport and you report back, you know what? I was so satisfied with this map. It was fantastic. I got to see the Alamo.
Yeah.
I got to see Dallas. I got to see wonderful things all around. Even though they spent the whole time in Tennessee, they will report back to you that they enjoyed the shit out of Texas thanks to your map. That's the analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Okay, so I will stop this recording now. Do you want me to share it with you privately?
Yeah. I was trying to think if I'd be okay with you uploading it or not. Sort of the mindset I had going in was just assume no, so I'd talk more freely. But I think you can upload it if you want to.
Yeah.
But I take.
Oh, so go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I would take a private. I mean, upload. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so let me put the question directly. Do I have your permission to upload?
Yes, you can upload it.
All right. Cool. Thank you.